Hit me before I'm slumped over the handlebar.
Just wanted to see your cornering skills there.
I love these kinds of steady climbs where you can just kind of lean into it and grind through it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how it's not unrelenting.
Yeah, the beginning was super steep and hurt. This is a little more civil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woo.
Whew. To the West Trailhead. Yeah, I was slowing down, getting my glove off, trying to get shots of you going downhill, but you're too fast.
Yeah, it's the mass times wind time or something.
We totally made it up that.
You claim this for a workers' comp?
Okay, so yeah, thanks for coming on this ride with me.
Well, it's been following you most of the day. So for anybody watching this, Glenn is a killer uphiller and downhiller.
I wouldn't say that. Likely to kill myself going downhill. We were talking earlier off camera about kind of the contentiousness of Jeffco politics in general, especially around the school board and the superintendent position even. I don't know if you ever saw it, but there was a Twitter parody account of you likening you to Edward Longshanks, the first, King of England, Scourge of Scotland. So as a Wallace, my first instinct was to unite the clans against you, but I figured in all fairness I should ask you a few questions just to see like how apt that parody was really. So do you have 16 children?
I have two. We've got a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old, both of which are going to Jeffco Public Schools.
All right, great, great. Any desire to invade Wales or Scotland?
Not at this time, although we're not taking anything off the table.
Okay.
Looking ahead, you know.
All right.
So, yeah, but you know that account, it's like a lot of fake. There are a lot of kind of fake Twitter, fake social media, fake news accounts that are around in Jeffco, and it's sort of an interesting dynamic to think about how do you engage with them, because the rules are asymmetrical, right? They can lie, they can exaggerate, they can say things, and then they hide behind this false persona. They can do a lot of things that, as a a real person and a public official and a public school leader, I can't do. So the conventional wisdom is you just kind of ignore them, which is what we've mostly done. Is just to ignore all that kind of stuff, and there's so much of it that I think people sort of tune it out. And there's probably 6 or 8 of those accounts, and they all seize on the same sort of fake news stories and retweet each other and take things out of context and distort, and anything that negative that happens, they seek to amplify that, and it's like a constant effort to try and turn everything into a crisis. The general rule of thumb is you just don't engage with it, because it's because of the asymmetrical nature of how they behave, and you just try to stay focused on what we're trying to accomplish as a school district and the good things that happen every day. And when bad things happen, we have to step up and own it and work to make it right. But it's been kind of funny to engage or see that happen in Jeffco, and then think about how to navigate it, how to navigate the politics of it.
Mm-hmm. All right, good. Anything against Mel Gibson?
You know, he made a couple of bad movies, but and some poor life decisions. But in general, I'm kind of a fan.
Okay.
Like Braveheart was a great flick, and the movie that he directed, that was the Incan tribe, I think, was a great movie. So,
All right. He was known for scrapping with France, a major power to the east. In this case, that would be DPS. DPS last few years has passed Jeffco in total student enrollment.
yeah.
They passed a bond when we couldn't. Is there I don't know, a rivalry there? Is there a
Yeah. Well, I think as the two
friction there?
largest districts in the state, there's a natural comparison, right? We're compared to Jeffco, or Jeffco's compared to DPS, and vice versa on a number of fronts, just because the size of the organizations is similar. I think the philosophies or approaches to improving education in DPS and Jeffco are different. DPS has relied on school choice, competition, testing, accountability as major drivers of how they intend to improve education, and I wish them well. Jeffco wishes them well. I mean, we're educating kids in Colorado. We want them to succeed. And all those same elements are present in Jeffco as well: school choice, competition, accountability, testing. But I would say our emphasis is really on the student experience and trying to make that authentic, genuine, meaningful, connected to the kinds of skills and things that kids are going to have to do when they leave our schools. So how do we change what is the student experiencing? That's the main thing for us. And so that's where we're putting our attention. It's got to get down to what is the student is experiencing, and change that profoundly and in a meaningful way. We also do a lot of attention focus on building up the teaching profession. We believe that it is a profession. It's a knowledge worker job. It's a high skill technical job, and not everybody can do it. So that's a belief that we have in Jeffco. So I think those two things form the nexus of what our approach to improving schools is focus on improving the student experience, changing the student experience to connect to those kinds of things they're going to have to do when they leave our schools, and then build up and support the teaching profession.
You mentioned transforming the student experience, which was one of the major points of a recent speech you gave, with the text of which is on the website, about equity. And I think the quote was to profoundly change the tasks and experiences students are having in Jeffco. Could you elaborate? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of us had experiences in school where we were learning just content or facts, and I'm not arguing that those aren't important. Certainly they are. I mean, having some level of base content knowledge or factual knowledge is important to solve problems. But what's more important is a set of skills that kids are going to need when they leave our school. So how to problem solve, how to persevere through a difficult situation, how to adapt to changing circumstances or conditions, how to be creative, how to collaborate with others. Our employers have been telling us for some time that those skills are lacking in the workforce, and with the increasing automation of everything, they're going to be more important. We've got to double down on the things that are uniquely human. Anything that can be replaced by a machine has already been, or it soon will be, and that's just accelerating. So we got to think about how we prepare our kids for a future where automation and content factual information is readily available and ubiquitous, but navigating it, interpreting it, using it in a meaningful way, that becomes even more important. So the equity component comes in. We've seen a lot of private schools and schools that serve mostly affluent kids have had this philosophy of an authentic, experience-based education focus for a long time. It's our kids that are in poverty. We've said those kids need drill and kill. They need test prep, and with the stakes associated with testing and accountability, it's even amped up on schools that serve a lot of disadvantaged kids. But I think we do them a disservice. We're not preparing them for the world that they'll inherit unless we can give them a chance to practice those kinds of complex skills and situations that mirror the kinds of work that they're going to have to do when they leave our schools.
Okay, great. District recently put out two surveys about the direction of the district, future of district funding. On the first of those, you asked how the public might receive a bond measure or increased district funding through the ballot box like that. But then you also asked about the Great Schools Thriving Communities initiative and how our community, our Jeffco community, was kind of thinking about that as well. I think on version 2 of the survey, the question about a district-specific bond measure is not on there. So could we take this as a signal that your district office is kind of looking more at the statewide initiative as the way to go this November?
Well, I think we're waiting to see if it makes the ballot, which we should know in a couple of weeks or early July. We'll know the answer to that. And so we've sort of been asking the community around Initiative 93, Great Schools Thriving Communities, a mill levy override, or a bond, and talking about all three to see what the community's preference is, what their thoughts are, and waiting to see what happens with Initiative 93. I mean, there's a probability that it won't make the ballot, and so we don't want to put all our eggs in that basket. At the same time, we do need to see if there's a willingness or an openness to passing some of these questions in Jeffco. If there's not, you shouldn't be even putting it on the ballot. So we seem to have gotten good information through both of those studies. One sort of scientific polling, one an internal, and people sort of more connected to Jeffco Public Schools that tells us the environment's right. People seem open to the idea of a school tax question. We seem to have rebuilt and established some trust and credibility with the community. That's another aspect of it. And then what's left for us to do is think about what's the right package of proposal and how do we craft that in a way that gets us to 50% plus one vote in Jeffco.
Mountain bike questions.
Yeah.
How do the trails in Eagle County compare to Jeffco?
Yeah, well, the trails in Jeffco are certainly more technical. So they're rockier, they're drier, you got a lot of drops and turns. You can get hurt here, so you got to be more careful. And there are snakes. There were no snakes in Eagle County. So the trails in Eagle are smooth, a lot gentler, with the exception of some of the trails that they built on Vail Mountain and Beaver Creek. Those are pretty gnarly too. But in general, the trails here are a little tougher, steeper, rockier, drier, and the snake aspects here.
What's your regular ride? What's your go-to route?
Yeah, well, right around the office and home. The office is in Golden, right next to Denver West area, and the Colorado Mills Mall, and then home is around Green Mountain. So all kinds of trails that are in the Golden area, or Green Mountain Trail, or Mount Falcon out of Morrison, or Red Rocks, or Bear Creek Lake. Those are the go-to because they're just so convenient. But on weekends, I like to get a little further out, come up to Centennial Cone here, or to the Buffalo Creek area. There's just so much terrain here. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Does your love of mountain biking and mountain bike areas lead you to favor those school areas more than, say, Alameda, which is, just greenbelt trails, not even a lot of bike lanes? Are you bike biased?
No, I'd say I love all the communities in Jeffco, and it's an interesting district and place to work because it's so diverse. I mean, you've got places that are basically inner city parts of the community. You've got old growth suburban areas, you've got new growth suburban areas, and you've got rural mountain areas. So Jeffco is diverse in terms of the people that are in it, but also the types of communities, which makes it a really interesting place to work because you got to balance all those interests and perspectives, which is one of the reasons I wanted to come to Jeffco.
Mm-hmm. How about back in Kentucky? Did you do much mountain biking there?
Not as much as here. I really didn't start mountain biking until I moved to Colorado and kind of discovered it. And mountain biking in the summer and fall, and then skiing in the winter and the spring, those are my go-to things.
Mm-hmm. All right, final question. Prima nocte?
Only with my lovely bride, so I'll pass on any other privileges that may come with status.
All right, great.
Made it.
Yeah, how was that?
Super fun. Yeah, great day, good weather, good trail.
Cool. So, honestly, what do you think would be tougher? Doing a second lap of Centennial Cone or increasing the college readiness rates of Jeffco students?
I would, I think what's harder is the second lap. We're going to make the other one happen.
Okay.
At least for me. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for the ride.
Hey, man, thank you.